Some doors are meant to be opened, and some exist only to stay closed forever. Kurohama High School looked like nothing more than an old building forgotten by time. But hidden inside it was a secret buried for more than 20 years. A whisper that never stopped coming from locker C13. A voice of a girl trapped in the dark for far too long, crying until her despair turned into vengeance. They say the locker calls only to the one it chooses. It doesn't want to be rescued. It only wants someone to take its place. If you dare listen until the end, ask yourself this: when the door finally opens, are you the one looking in? Or is the one inside already looking out? Chapter 1: The Old Kurohama School. Kurohama High School was built in 1968, tucked deep inside an aging residential district that once served as military grounds. Locals spoke of the school with strange expressions, a mix of reluctance and fear, as if everyone knew something but no one dared to speak it aloud. Most students came here simply because there were no better options. The building had fallen into decay long ago. Yet it remained open like a forgotten relic that refused to disappear. From the entrance gate, an icy draft greeted anyone who stepped in. The brick path leading into the courtyard was cracked and uneven, swarmed with moss where the sunlight rarely touched. The three-story main building stretched down like an endless corridor of windows coated in dust, some cracked, never repaired. The air was thick with the smell of rust, mold, and stagnant water, as if the entire place had been soaked in cold rain for decades. But none of that was the most unsettling sight. Right beside the entrance hall stood a long row of student lockers. Reaching from one end of the hall to the other, hundreds of metal doors pressed together, forming a rigid wall of steel, scarred by dents and scratches, as if someone had clawed at them desperately. Over and over again, the white numbers painted on each locker had faded, barely visible beneath layers of grime. Whenever senior students walked past, they quickened their steps and kept their heads down. None stopped to talk, none loitered, and none turned to look. Some even crossed to the opposite side of the hallway to avoid walking directly beside the lockers. Kaori, a first-year transfer student from Tokyo, thought it was just an oddly synchronized habit. But the uncomfortable chill in the air told her there was more to it. During the orientation tour, the homeroom teacher passed the lockers quickly and lowered his voice without explanation. "These are your student lockers. Use only the number assigned to you. Don't switch with anyone, don't open the wrong one, and don't be curious." It sounded like a simple rule, but the tremor in his voice and the way his eyes avoided the lockers said otherwise. It felt less like a rule and more like a warning. When the others continued walking toward the classrooms, Kaori slowed down and turned her head once more toward the long steel wall of lockers. Every door looked identical, gray, dented, dusty, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something behind them was very much awake and aware of her. She didn't know it then, but from the moment she looked back, the lockers were already looking back at her. And that was the moment she had unknowingly stepped into a secret the school had spent 20 years trying to hide. Chapter 2: The Locker Number C13. On the first official day of school, students gathered at the entrance hall to receive their personal locker assignments. A printed list hung on the announcement board, matching each student's name with a locker number. Kaori's was B27, Rin's A03, Soda's B04. But one thing stood out immediately. The list jumped from C12 to C14. No one, absolutely no one, was assigned to locker C13. Yet on the long wall of lockers, the number C13 was there, clear as day. Faded white paint peeling around deep scratches that looked disturbingly like claw marks. No student touched it, no one looked at it for more than a second. When passing that part of the hallway, the atmosphere dropped several degrees, and the voices faded as though everyone instinctively avoided drawing attention to it. Kaori stared for a moment, curious. Rin tugged her sleeve sharply. "Don't stop near that one," Rin whispered. Before Kaori could respond, Soda swaggered over with a half laugh and tapped the front of C13. "Don't tell me you're scared of a locker." Rin panicked, grabbing his arm. "Stop, seriously, don't." Soda smirked and wrapped his fingers around the handle anyway. The moment he touched it, a loud bang exploded from inside the locker, like someone punching the door from within. Bam! The hallway fell dead silent for the three of them. But strangely, all the other students carried on as if nothing happened. No one else had heard it. Soda stumbled back in shock. Rin trembled uncontrollably. Kaori stood frozen, her throat tight, eyes locked on the dark slit where the bent door frame left a tiny opening. When the crowd moved on, Kaori passed the locker again. She had no intention of touching it, yet she heard it. "Please, don't leave me in here." A voice, soft as breath, right in her ear. She spun around, heart racing. No one was close enough to whisper to her. That was the moment Kaori realized something terrifying. Not everyone could hear the voice. Only the ones chosen could. And C-13 had already chosen her. Chapter 3: The Hidden Legend. Kaori couldn't focus in class. The voice still echoed in her head, thin as thread and soaked in despair. When she blinked, she saw the locker vibrating behind her eyelids, like someone trapped inside had screamed for years. That afternoon, Kaori, Rin, and Soda were assigned to clean the entrance hall. Kaori offered to help even though she wasn't on the list. She didn't want Rin and Soda near the lockers alone. The hallway was nearly silent when the teacher left, leaving only their footsteps and the scratching of brooms. Then Mr. Matsuo, the old school guard, arrived to mop the floor. He had worked at Kurohama for 35 years, almost as long as the school existed. When he reached locker C-13, his hand froze mid-motion. Fear, raw and bone-deep, flickered across his wrinkled face. Kaori's curiosity overcame her fear. "Mr. Matsuo, why isn't anyone allowed to use locker C-13? He hesitated. For a long moment, he said nothing, then he sat down on a dusty chair, the mop slipping from his hand. 20 years ago, he began, a student named Aki Tsukishima disappeared inside this school. She wasn't found, not dead, not alive. She simply vanished." Rin gasped and dropped her cleaning cloth. Soda fell silent for the first time. They said it was bullying at first. A cruel prank. The other girls locked her in C-13. They thought someone would find her quickly. But when the teachers opened it, he swallowed hard. There was no body. Only blood, torn fingernails, and long strands of hair stuck inside the door. The air turned ice cold. Mr. Matsuo continued. The lockers were sealed, but at night, students heard crying from inside C-13, someone begging not to be left alone. After that, students who tried to open the locker began disappearing too. No trace, no evidence, like they never existed. Rin clutched her head, Soda stared at the floor. Kaori felt the truth settle in her bones. The voice she heard wasn't a hallucination. Someone was inside that locker. Someone who had been left there for too long. Someone who wanted out. Not to be saved, but to trade places. Chapter 4: The Voice in the Dream. That night, Kaori barely slept. Every time her eyes slipped shut, she felt the cold metal of the locker against her skin. Around 2 a.m., she finally drifted into a fragile sleep, but instead of silence, a whisper reached her through the darkness. "Kaori, don't leave me." Her eyes snapped open. The room was pitch black. The lamp wouldn't turn on. The air felt heavy, unmoving. She lay still, trembling. Then the whisper returned, closer, clearer. "Kaori, I'm cold, open the door, please." Her blood froze. The voice wasn't coming from nowhere, it was coming from her wardrobe. The wardrobe door creaked open on its own, painfully slow. A pale hand, streaked with dried blood, slid out through the gap, trembling, reaching, desperate. Kaori screamed and bolted upright. And in that very moment, everything vanished. The wardrobe was closed, the lamp turned on. The room was exactly as it had been. Except for one thing. Kaori looked in the mirror and gasped. A red fingerprint bruised her neck. Just like someone had grabbed her while she slept. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "Don't be afraid, I just need someone to stay with me." The clock read 2:17 a.m., the same time the crying from C-13 was first reported 20 years ago. And Kaori understood a horrifying truth. She wasn't just hearing the voice. She was being called, Chapter 5: The Bent Lock. The next morning, Kaori arrived at school exhausted. Having barely slept, every echo in the hallway made her flinch. Rin kept glancing around nervously, while Sota pretended to be calm, though his forced smile told a different story. As they approached the locker hall to switch shoes, all three froze. The lock on C13 had been bent out of shape. The metal latch, which had been sealed tightly the day before, now curved outward as if something inside had forced it open by pure strength. The door didn't completely open, but a narrow gap, just wide enough for darkness to seep through, split down the center. A foul smell drifted out. A mix of damp metal, mold, and something that reminded Kaori horrifically of blood. Rin whispered, voice trembling, "We should go, please." But Kaori couldn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the gap. The temperature dropped sharply, and a draft of icy air flowed from inside the locker. Then she heard it, clearer than ever. "I'm still here. I'm still here, don't leave me." The voice sounded like someone who had cried until their soul broke, pleading. Terrified, desperate, Kaori staggered backward, bumping into another locker. Sota grabbed her arm and pulled her away, Rin crying softly. Just when they began to run, the locker behind them rattled violently. Clang, clang, clang. Like fists slamming the metal door in rage, or in urgency. Nobody else in the hallway reacted. They didn't hear a thing. At recess, several upperclassmen gathered in front of the locker, drawn by the rumor that C13 had opened again. One boy laughed and pounded the door. "If there's a ghost, come out and show us." Instantly, the locker jolted forward, as if someone kicked it from the inside. The boy's face drained of color. He stumbled back and ran, pretending it was all a joke. But Kaori heard something no one else did. A faint giggle. Delighted. Triumphant. And then a whisper, directed only at her. "Someone will come to take my place soon. But not yet. Not until you're ready." Later that night, Kaori received a text from an unknown number. "I know you'll come for me. I'll be waiting inside." The message disappeared from her phone seconds later. But she knew exactly who sent it. Chapter 6: The Ceremony of Replacement. The text message haunted Kaori through the night. She tried to stay awake, terrified of sleeping, terrified of dreaming, but exhaustion eventually dragged her under. She found herself in the entrance hall of the school, empty. Silent, soaked in damp shadows. Only one thing stood out. Every footprint on the dusty floor led toward locker C13. Then Aki appeared. Not the pale, ghostly figure from the locker, but a normal girl, wearing the old sailor-style uniform, hair tied neatly, face soft and fragile. "Kaori, I'm sorry I scared you," Aki said with a trembling smile. "I never wanted to hurt you." Kaori stared, speechless. Aki continued, voice shaking. "Do you know what it's like to scream until your throat bleeds, and no one opens the door? Do you know what it's like to beg for help, and all you hear is silence?" Aki stepped closer. Tears welled in her eyes, the eyes of a girl who had been abandoned for far too long. "I hated the locker. I hated the dark. I hated the sound of metal. But the worst part was realizing I just wanted one person, and no one wanted me back." The words struck Kaori like a blade. She knew loneliness, not the same kind, but deep enough to understand. The scene shifted. The locker door behind Aki creaked open. Inside was nothing but a pitch-black void. Aki reached for Kaori gently. "If one person stays with me, I won't have to take anyone else. Rin will be safe. Sota will come back. Nobody else will disappear. I promise." Kaori shook her head violently, whispering through tears, "I don't want to disappear." Aki's grip tightened. "I don't want to kill anymore. But if you don't come, I'll have to keep choosing others." The darkness inside the locker trembled with movement, hands stretching outward, grasping at nothing. Kaori woke up screaming. The wardrobe in her room was open. Her phone screen was lit. Another text. "It's almost time." Chapter 7: The Night of the Lockdown. The administration announced that the lockers would be chained shut for safety reasons. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood something was wrong. That night, Mr. Matsuo was ordered to secure the lockers. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from his flickering flashlight. The sound of chains dragging across the floor echoed eerily. He worked quickly, until he reached C13. His hands froze. His eyes filled with the same dread he carried for 20 years. He wrapped the heavy chain around the handle, trying not to shake, but before he could lock it, the locker shook violently. Thud, thud, thud. 3 strikes. From the inside. "Stop," a voice whispered behind him. He whirled around, no one was there. "Please don't lock it, I'll be alone again." The plea came a second time, louder. Desperate. But the hallway was empty. He squeezed his eyes shut, muttering to himself, "No more, it ends tonight." He forced the padlock shut, and at that moment, the locker burst open, flinging him backward. A pale hand shot out, grabbing his leg. Another, and another. He screamed as he was dragged toward the darkness. Fingernails scraped the metal floor, leaving bloody streaks. His final sight was a girl with blank white eyes smiling from inside the locker. Then the door slammed. Dash dash dash. Morning. The official announcement. Greater than, Mr. Matsuo has passed away suddenly due to a heart attack. But the teachers who saw the body whispered otherwise. A face twisted in terror. Fingers torn and bloody from scraping metal. A drag mark leading straight to locker C-13, and ending there. Since that night, the entire locker hall remained silent. Yet Kaori still heard the whisper, soft, intimate, inevitable. "I know you'll come soon." Chapter 8. The door opens. The day after Mr. Matsuo's mysterious death, the school was strangely quiet. Students whispered rumors, teachers silenced them, and everyone pretended that nothing had happened, because pretending was easier than facing the truth. But something had changed. When Kaori, Rin, and Soda passed through the locker hall after class, they immediately stopped. The chains on locker C-13 were gone. Vanished. The locker stood bare, no padlock, no dented metal, no trace of restraint. It was as if it had never been sealed at all. Rin grabbed Kaori's wrist. "Don't look at it, don't listen, let's go." But Kaori couldn't move. She wasn't drawn by curiosity, it felt like something inside her was pulling her forward. A silent command, a thread wrapped around her chest. Then, without a single touch, the locker door slowly opened. Not violently this time, not rattling or forced. It opened softly. Welcoming. Inviting. Cold air rolled out, brushing Kaori's skin like someone exhaling against her neck. And in the hollow darkness of the locker, a figure stood. A girl wearing the old sailor-style uniform. Long black hair covering most of her face. Thin shoulders. Bare, bruised feet. She looked up. Blank white eyes. No pupils. No light. But she smiled. A gentle smile that didn't belong on a face twisted by loneliness and rage. Rin shrieked and pulled Kaori backward. Soda yelled, voice cracking, but Kaori didn't resist. Her body was unresponsive, as if the terror had numbed all control. Every locker in the hallway suddenly shook violently, slamming and rattling all at once, like a chorus of children trapped inside metal coffins. Dozens of whispers overlapped. Finally? She opened it. The lights flickered, and Kaori fainted. When she woke up, the hallway was empty. C-13 was closed again. The figure was gone. But her heart knew the truth. Aki wasn't confined to the locker anymore. She had chosen her replacement. And Kaori was next. Chapter 9. The Strange Disappearances. The next day, Kaori barely spoke. She walked like someone in a dream, trapped between terror and resignation. Rin never left her side, terrified to blink, and Soda, for once, had lost his bravado. During break, Soda stood up to fetch his gym clothes from locker B04. Rin begged him not to go. Kaori just stared, already knowing what would happen. "I'm not going anywhere near C-13, Soda insisted, forcing a laugh. "Relax." He never returned. Rin and Kaori ran to the locker hall minutes later. The hallway was silent. Soda's locker was open, his belongings untouched, but he was gone. Just then, The large hallway monitor flickered on. The CCTV feed showed Sota standing perfectly still before locker C13. No panic, no struggle, blank eyes. The locker door slightly ajar beside him. The footage glitched, static rippled, and when the frame cleared, Sota had vanished. Instantly. Without moving. Rin collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Kaori stared at the screen, numb. In her mind, Aki whispered again, tender, possessive. He doesn't matter. In the end, it was always going to be you. Kaori's heartbeat stopped, not from fear, but from guilt. Sota was gone. Because she hadn't taken Aki's place yet. And she knew, the locker would keep taking people. Until she did. Chapter 10: The Contract of Loneliness. That night, Kaori's exhaustion overcame her fear once more. The moment she fell asleep, she returned to the school hallway in her dream. Aki stood there waiting, no longer a ghost, but a fragile girl again. She looked tired, broken, almost human. I didn't want Sota to disappear. Aki whispered. I never wanted anyone to die. I just didn't want to be alone anymore. Kaori shook her head, crying, I don't want to disappear. Aki took her hand gently, not cold, not hostile, warm, like a friend. If you trade places with me, everything ends. Rin will live, Sota will return. No more screaming, no more blood, no more loneliness. Just one person, only one, has to stay with me. The locker behind Aki opened again. Blackness pulsed inside, alive, hungry. Kaori stepped backward, trembling. Please don't make me do this. Aki's voice cracked, desperate. I begged for help. I prayed. I cried. No one came. No one ever came for me. So I learned something. She stepped forward, close enough that Kaori could hear the shaking in her breath. If I can't be saved, then someone has to replace me. Hands reached from the darkness inside the locker, dozens of them. Trembling and aching with grief rather than anger. Kaori jolted awake, gasping for air. Her phone buzzed. A new message appeared. It's time to stop running. Chapter 11: Kaori's Final Day. Kaori walked into school the next morning without a word. Her eyes were empty, not because the fear had disappeared, but because she had already made peace with it. Rin clung to her arm the entire walk to class, trembling. Kaori, don't do this, please, we'll figure out something. I can't lose you too. Kaori gave her a tired smile, a smile that hurt more than crying. I'm so tired, Rin, if I go, everything ends, no one else has to disappear. Rin broke down, begging, shaking, grabbing Kaori's clothes as if her life depended on it. Kaori hugged her tightly, desperately, as though trying to memorize the warmth. Then she slipped a folded piece of paper into Rin's desk and walked away. Don't blame yourself. Don't search for me. Live your life, even if I'm gone. The rest of the day passed like a dream. Teachers lectured, students chatted, the school pretended to be normal. But Kaori didn't hear a single sound. When the final bell rang, Kaori stood up. Rin lunged to stop her, screaming, sobbing, but Kaori gently freed herself. If I stay, more people will die. I won't let anyone else take my place. She turned away from Rin's shaking hands and walked toward the locker hallway. The lights flickered. The hallway was empty. Locker C13 opened by itself. No creaking, no rattling, no violence. Just a silent invitation. Aki stood beside it, in her original human form. Soft smile, sad eyes. As if she didn't want to force anything, only receive what she had begged for her whole life. Thank you, Kaori, she whispered. Kaori stepped into the locker on her own. Not because she wanted to, but because she refused to let anyone else suffer. Aki lightly touched Kaori's chest, not to pull, not to push, just a gentle gesture. And the door slammed shut. Rin arrived seconds too late. She slammed on the metal door until her hands bled, screaming Kaori's name over and over. But silence answered. A minute later, the locker creaked open. Empty. Kaori was gone. On the inside of the metal door, written in fresh, dripping red letters, Kaori, Chapter 12: The Blood Pact. Rin's screams echoed for minutes until teachers and students rushed to the hallway. They pulled her away, but she kept screaming the same thing. "She's inside. Kaori is inside. C-13 took her." But to everyone else, nothing was unusual. There was no record of Kaori on the class list. No desk belonging to her. Her name wasn't on any assignment sheet, any attendance book, or any school database. It was as if she had never existed. Aki didn't just trade places. She erased the person who took her place. That night, Rin sat in her room shaking. No one believed her. Everyone told her to calm down, to stop imagining things, to get over it. But she remembered Kaori. And that was enough to drive her halfway to madness. Her phone buzzed. A message, from an unknown number. "Don't look for her," Rin typed, hands shaking violently. "Who are you? Where is Kaori?" No reply. She dropped to her knees, sobbing, until she noticed something in her mirror. A figure stood behind her reflection, a girl in a sailor uniform. Face hidden by long black hair. A cold hand rested gently on Rin's shoulder, though in the real room. Nothing touched her. A whisper brushed her ear. "I miss her too. But Kaori is taking my place now." Rin spun around, nothing there. The wardrobe door creaked open. The darkness inside seemed to stretch toward her feet. Aki's voice drifted again, mournful, fractured, pleading. "I have my freedom now. But someone must stay in the locker for me." The truth hit Rin in the gut. Aki wasn't done. The blood pact was only complete when someone else became the next prisoner. Chapter 13 C-13 becomes quiet again. The next day, Rin didn't show up to class. Most students didn't notice. Some thought she was sick. Others assumed she skipped school. By the afternoon, no one remembered she existed. Except one person. Soda. He was suddenly back in class, sitting upright, silent, staring blankly at the empty seat in the middle of the room. The seat nobody remembered belonging to Kaori. Soda didn't talk, didn't blink much, didn't respond when spoken to. He simply murmured one thing under his breath, over and over. "She saved me, she saved me, she saved me." After class, Soda walked straight to the locker hall. Locker C-13 was shut tight. Calm. Motionless. Soda placed his forehead against the cold metal door. "I'm sorry, Kaori. It should have been me." Then something snapped inside him. He rammed his head into the locker, again and again, until blood ran down his face. "Let me in. Let me take your place. Don't leave me behind." Teachers dragged him away. He was taken to a psychiatric hospital. Days later, he vanished from a sealed hospital room, no windows broken, no doors opened. The only thing left inside the room was a dent in the wall, matching the size and shape of a locker door. Back at school, C-13 did not rattle anymore. No whispers. No crying. No banging. The locker was content. It had found someone new. Chapter 14 20 years later. Kurohama High School was eventually torn down. A new, modern school stood in its place, bright corridors, fresh walls, and smiling students unaware of the history buried beneath their feet. The old lockers, however, had not been thrown away. They were moved into a storage warehouse behind the gym, stacked in the dark among broken chairs and outdated equipment. On the day before the new school's opening ceremony, a young teacher was assigned to inspect the warehouse inventory. He slipped through dusty aisles, checking items off a clipboard, old projectors, rusty foldable bleachers, collapsed chalkboards. Then he stopped. There, among the pile of junk, was a tightly chained locker, C-13. The white paint on the numbers had faded, and the chains wrapped around it looked much older than the other equipment stored there. Another teacher, an older man, happened to pass by. When he saw what the young teacher was staring at, his expression immediately tightened. "Don't touch that," the older teacher snapped. "It's just an old locker." The young teacher laughed nervously. The older teacher shook his head, voice low, eyes filled with something that looked dangerously close to fear. "There are things in this school that are better left alone." He handed the warehouse keys over quickly, then walked away without another word. The young teacher frowned. He didn't believe in superstition. But the moment he looked back at C-13, a strange sensation crept across his skin. He felt like someone, or something, inside the locker was watching him. To reassure himself, he placed his hand on the handle. It was warm. Not from sunlight or temperature, warm like a human hand. Something exhaled faintly behind him. "Thank you for not abandoning me." The young teacher spun around, nothing there. When he looked back at his hand, a faint outline of small fingers, red and bruised, had appeared on his wrist. Like a child had just held him. He locked the warehouse and hurried away, refusing to look back. But the CCTV camera outside captured what happened later that night. The warehouse door opened on its own. The lockers shook. The chains around C-13 fell to the floor without being touched. And the door slowly opened, like it had been waiting far too long. Inside the darkness, a pair of blank white eyes stared directly into the camera. Chapter 15: The Whisper returns. The first week of school passed peacefully. Students talked, laughed, and filmed TikToks in the hallways. The new building felt warm and full of life, except after sundown, when the lights dimmed and the hallways emptied. Hannah, a young member of the school's cleaning staff, stayed late one evening. She had heard rumors about the warehouse, but dismissed them as ghost stories teachers used to scare students. At 7:30 p.m., she pushed her cleaning cart into the warehouse to sweep up dust. Her phone flashlight cast shaking beams across stacks of forgotten items. Something metallic shifted deeper inside the room. Hannah paused. Probably an animal, she whispered to convince herself. She stepped farther in. C-13 stood alone at the back of the warehouse. Chains gone. Door slightly ajar. A cold breath of air brushed her hair. Then, 3 soft knocks from inside the locker. Knock, knock, knock. Hannah swallowed hard. She told herself it must be the metal cooling, or wind hitting loose parts of the structure. She reached out to test the handle. Before her hand made contact, another hand wrapped around her wrist, from behind. Hannah screamed and spun around. But there was no one there. Her flashlight fell to the floor and spun in circles, illuminating the locker from below. And the door swung fully open. A girl stood inside. Sailor uniform. Long tangled hair. Bare feet. White eyes. A gentle, aching smile. Her voice trembled with eternal grief. "Can you help me? I've been trapped here for so long." Her smile widened, sweet and warm, like a friend. But her eyes remained empty. Dead, starving. Hannah shook her head frantically, stumbling backward, but the whispers came from all sides, dozens of them, overlapping, pleading, desperate. "Don't leave me alone. Stay with me. Someone has to replace me." The names inside the door of C-13 glowed faintly in the spinning flashlight beam, carved deep into the metal. Dozens of names. Then 2 fresh ones. Kaori. Rin. And a new one was slowly being etched, letter by letter, in fresh red strokes. H-A-N-A. Hannah tried to scream, but her voice cracked in silence. Aki leaned forward, whispering with heartbreaking relief. "Thank you for staying with me." The door slammed shut. The next morning, no one could find Hannah. Her locker at home had been emptied. Her registration file was gone. Her existence faded like a memory erased. And in the warehouse, C-13 was chained again. Quiet and satisfied. But every night at 7:30 p.m., if someone stands outside the warehouse, they can hear it. "Please, don't leave me here alone." The chains tremble. The metal echoes. Because C-13 only ever needs one person. And human loneliness never runs out. The story of Locker C-13 seemed to end with Kaori's disappearance. But the whisper never stopped. Each time someone vanishes, every memory of them is erased, like they never existed. And then the locker becomes quiet again, waiting for loneliness to return. Because C-13 doesn't seek death. It seeks someone who won't leave it alone. So if one day you pass by an old locker and hear a faint voice inside saying, "Please, don't leave me. Run. Don't look back," Because if you listen, even for a moment, the next name carved inside the door might be yours.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.